right, so how are you doing tonight? Any changes or additions to the agenda?
I think that Jen posted an amended agenda. We did add some CFCs to this list.
I'm not seeing an agenda in my...
I have Edith Holm, Lightship, Quaid, and Gilson on mine. Did she add more? Those are the four
Doug,
that I have.
was this yours? Or is that up here?
Take it.
It looks right. We'll just wait till she comes in.
I've got it was amended 6/17.
Yeah, that's today.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be right.
Okay. So, anything else, Penny?
You know what, I don't think so. I think we're all set. So
If we got something in here that we can just update the commission on progress on trails and...
No, we'll be at that.
All right, so trails and parking and access.
I know.
Yeah,
Next meeting. Yep.
Okay?
Other than that, I make a motion to accept the agenda as written with the add-on about the trails and parking.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So, Paul, why don't you jump up? Tell us what you're... Does anybody else want to see a picture of this 26 Bayberry?
Thank you.
I'm Paul Sharon, 25 Bayberry Road. There is a existing order of conditions out on my property that I'm hoping to file for certificate of compliance sooner versus later, but one of the conditions states that the decking on the back side of the house be wide enough to allow for natural vegetation to grow under the deck. My assumption was that if I skirt the deck, that's obviously not going to promote anything growing, so I didn't skirt the deck. And after a year, maybe 3/4 of the deck, there's nothing under there. We're getting animals and birds nesting and things like that. And I have young kids, and I figured if there's nothing growing one way or the other, it may grow over time. I figured I'd ask permission to actually skirt the deck and make the back of the house look a little bit more presentable.
Okay. Penny, do you want to...
I don't have a problem with him skirting, as long as it's, water can still flow freely through, in the winter, whenever we get a storm or
Yep.
high tide. Yeah, if nothing's grown.
Doug? So just as a background for anybody that wasn't on at the time, when we conditioned the project, there was an existing house at this site, but there was, the day we went out for a site visit, there was water like around most of the house. It's in a really low area.
Yeah.
And so the commission had concerns about the footprint and fill and all that sort of stuff, so that was, I think, the reason that we could have the deck there, but there was concerns about how much more the project should be than what was there. But
Was there an expectation that vegetation would actually grow under that?
well, I think it was the hope that
No, there's
something
not.
would.
Yeah.
Just by luck?
Well, you know, if you build a walkway on a marsh, there's criteria for how high it's supposed to be above the marsh, and then the spacing between the planks and all that stuff, which works fine in a walkway, but you really can't do that on a deck. I mean, someone in heels or something would have break their ankle.
Yeah.
So you got to put the deck closer together.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just not getting enough light under there, as you can see from the picture.
Yep.
Lisa?
No, I- no problem.
Nope, as long as there's space, like Penny said, I see no road.
Jen?
No?
Amy, you want to?
Well, so I brought this in as a minor modification, so we just, we'll make note of it. And when we go out for certification, when inspection, when a decking is there, we won't notice it as something we are unaware of,
Yes.
so thanks for coming in.
So, Paul, I was thinking, when I did talk to you about it, and we talked to Amy, you know, the idea was that, and we had just a thing from Mass Fish and Wildlife about coyotes and fox, and just trying to keep wildlife out from under things like that. So it certainly makes sense that you do that, and I'm assuming you're gonna bring that down, so it's pretty close to the grass.
Yes.
One of the things you might consider, maybe a few plants or something. Richard, sorry, this was for Bayberry.
Yeah,
And
that works. I got it. Yeah.
So that was a project we conditioned, and Paul's looking to move towards the CFC, but he wanted to be able to skirt this deck. And so, when the commission had discussed this before, it was hoping that stuff would grow underneath it, but he says it's not working out, and so that's the approach. And I was just thinking, if you pick a few spots, sort of, it might even soften how that looks.
Yeah.
You know, find something that will work. It's gotta be salt tolerant, obviously, but if you can find a few plantings to place around there, I think that would be a good compromise to that.
Yeah, one of the other conditions was to replace a couple of native plants that I had to remove for excavation purposes,
Right.
so that would be a perfect place
All
to
that,
replace them.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Super, I appreciate it.
Okay.
Anything else for that one?
We
Okay,
have to take a vote and modify this. Okay.
just so we're all under agreement, so
Sounds good.
he can get
It'll
us,
be in the minutes that you accepted them.
all right,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, it's like, he only beat me by a few minutes. Really beat
Probably
you by
go
a few
into the
minutes.
6:25 hearing at this
Yep.
point.
So, 6:25, this is Turcot, Marabito. On June 17th, 2019, at 6:25 PM in the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under chapter, actually, you know what I should have done, Amy, is just continue,
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Dickens
yes.
Row,
Yeah.
so, excuse me. So I just want to make a motion to continue Dickens Row to the 15th, July 15th.
At 6:20.
That was the request somewhere.
Second.
Second, oh, okay.
July 1st.
Yeah, but it's
I have an
changed. They asked
email-
for the 15th, I guess.
15, July 15.
From T. Sweeney at Morse to continue it to the 15th. Okay?
Yeah, we gotta vote.
All those, do we get a second?
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, sorry. On June 17th, 6:25 PM, the Town Hall Citrus Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 4 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Paul Turcott, am I saying that right, Paul?
Yes.
To install a shed at a dwelling located at 61 Seaside Road, Scituate. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Paul Marabito from Ross Engineering Company, representing the owner and applicant, Paul and Bonnie Turcott, who are seated behind Jennifer this evening. About a year ago, we approached the commission for an order of conditions to raise and rebuild the existing dwelling on the site, which was approved. The dwelling is virtually complete. What they're proposing to do is to install a 10 by 20 shed on site. The manufactured to be brought from the site and placed on top of the sonotube foundation. The location is shown on the plan. It's, up against the street line for the Paper Street, Somerset Ave. There's a sill site around it. There's also an existing 10-foot wide right-of-way, which is an extension of Driftwood Lane that provides access to the dwelling at number 63. There's also a subsurface natural gas line in the lane that comes here and goes over to a gas valve and onto this house. This is the only place they could really put the shed. This is one of the chain ponds in this area here. This is the edge of the wetland that was flagged by Brad. This has been overtaken by quite a few fragmites. There are some, there's some rosa rugosa in the area of the proposed shed. What we do is remove what we have to remove and replace it with rosa rugosa. I believe this was a stockpile area. Armstrong used when he installed the piles on the house. Some of them got damaged. In the middle of this, there's some bare spots, but there's also Phragmite creeping this way. So we don't show it, but we propose it, or we'd ask that it be part of the order of conditions to replicate anything that we do have to remove from the shed. The top of the piles have to be at least 2 feet above the ground for DEP policy. This is a coastal dune, and in my narrative I pointed out the section of the Wetlands Protection Act that does allow accessory structures such as sheds to be placed on a coastal dune. There's no grade change in the site, and everything else in its place. This is where they currently drive in, and they park their cars in this area here. That's why the shed was placed in this area. I did talk to Bob Vogel, and he said he would allow the structure to go in this location. Because it is a 10 by 20 foot shed, and it's 200 square feet or less, you don't need a building permit in Massachusetts to install that. So, we are friendly with the commission accordingly. With that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
It's still a big shed, 10 by 20. It's a good sized shed. The ocean, oh, all right, it's the
The ocean's
ocean,
over
so
there.
it is at a
Seaside
farthest
Road's
point,
on the
yeah.
water.
As long as it's up, I don't think I have any problem with it, with the water can flow through.
It does, it has to.
I know a few years ago, we did another shed more down the street, and we put it up on islands or something.
This is the
wanna look
Rosa
at this
Rugosa
guy?
he's talking about. The house is
Is
over
that-
here,
I'll
towards
stare at
me.
it in a second, yeah.
Okay, and so this is the area they're talking about right here. The pond, wetlands are back here. Yeah, yeah. So,
It's actually in a resource area.
it is.
It is.
So you, Paul,
Do
you
you guys,
talking?
do you wanna skip to me so I can talk about the regulations
Yeah.
before you
Yeah,
comment?
yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay. All right, well, so it's within 50 feet of DPW. And so you've got the local bylaw, the 50, do not disturb. You also have the coastal dune. And so we go to the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. And I agree that it could, I mean, there's a lot of gray area, right, subject to interpretation. But it definitely could fit into the category of an accessory project. It need only minimize the adverse effects to the coastal dune, so that it's 10.283 A through F are the interests of the act that you're protecting, right? So ability of waves to remove sand from the dune, disturbing the vegetative cover as to destabilize the dune, causing any modification to the dune that would increase the potential for storm or flood damage, interfering with the landward or lateral movement of the dune, causing removal of sand from the dune artificially, or interfering with mapped or otherwise identified bird nesting habitat. And then number 4 is notwithstanding those conditions, when a building already exists on a coastal dune, so that's the house already exists on the coastal dune, a project accessory to the existing building may be permitted, provided such work, using the best commercially available measures, minimize the adverse effect on the coastal dune, impacting those standards, right? Such an accessory project may include, but is not limited to, a small shed or a small parking area for residences. So I guess a couple of things that I was thinking was, he's got parking next to the house already. And then the shed, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the distance is, but Paul, how far is the shed off the house? I mean, I'm not sure that just landward, again, that's subject to interpretation of what's just landward.
This is the existing
A little over 50
riverway
feet.
It's quite a ways.
right here, which is essentially is an easement to this house. And this is the edge of the gravel that was there at the time of survey. From here to there is about 18 feet.
Now, what's the distance from the house to the proposed shed?
To the shed,
Oh, from the house to the shed,
looks 50 on
A little over 50, around 50
it's
feet.
probably 30 feet, 35 feet. This is the.
So is that
ceiling
just landward? I
right
mean,
here. Pardon?
is that, I think that, to me, what that's saying is that's, all right, the house is already up on piles, and so you're gonna get movement under the house, right? And so if the shed were adjacent to the house, and it's up on pilings, it's definitely, I would think that's not gonna change things. But now you've got house, driveway, easement, shed, which is vegetated, by the way. We were out there, and it's definitely covered with
Rosa.
plants. And it's within the 50-foot buffer. I mean, it's up on piles, that's a positive, but you're within the buffer and you're in the dune. So it's again, there's some gray area, you know what I mean? It's a little bit subject to interpretation on what you wanna see. There's sheds in the neighborhood. We have neighbors that may be here tonight, that are gonna tell you that there are sheds washed down the road because it's definitely, there's significant
Yeah.
storms that come through here and flooding and overwash.
Well, and this, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, just to add another quick, this is all in a velocity zone. Then
Yeah.
the entire, so the placement of the shed is
It
still
is.
in a velocity zone.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. But it's also on the coastal dune.
I mean, I think adding salt tolerant grasses or requiring that those be maintained around it might minimize any scour and enhance the stability of the sediments around the shed, if you wanted to go that way. Because, I mean, so he's definitely, they're disturbing within the resource area, so you're gonna be wanting to have some kind of mitigation for that alteration.
I guess my concern is in a velocity zone like that, if that, in a major storm, there's a likelihood that the shed could get washed away.
Yes.
Right, well, so it's gonna be up on piles?
2 feet, he said.
But just off the ground, not elevated above the velocity zone. So it's gonna be in harm's way with the velocity. So if the shed gets washed into the pond,
Yep.
I feel like there have to be restrictions on what's contained in the shed, and, I mean,
Which is gonna be hard to enforce. I mean, you've permitted sheds before on coastal dunes, like I can think in Hummerock,
Yeah.
and it was kind of a fail as far as like plantings go. I was by there today, and I mean, you require them to put them in, but it's kind of hard to, you know,
They don't survive.
oversee, yeah, people start parking on them and stuff like that,
That is true, but the one in Humrock is actually at a higher elevation than this one,
but, right.
considerably higher. I'd be worried about the velocity, because if you're going 2 feet off the ground, I don't live in that area, but I've been in that area a lot, and I could see 2 feet not being nearly high enough. I share Doug's concern, is that it's gonna get washed away quickly.
Right, well, so maybe the solution is putting the shed adjacent to the house, so that way it's, you know, the
Well,
materials being stopped by the house.
Yeah.
But the house is on piles.
The
House is
on
up
fire,
high.
So it'd have
House
to
is
be
up high.
up high, too. Yeah.
we have in the past, you know, said like you can't store underneath your house, you can't store gasoline or this or that, you know, any hazardous waste. No, how do we enforce it? But, I mean, common sense to me, people wouldn't put something like that in the shed, especially on the, I know.
We're not gonna be knocking on the shed.
No, we're not gonna be.
Doug, do you want to add anything else to your thoughts?
no, keep going.
Richard?
I just did.
Lisa?
Why not elevate it more than 2 feet? Could that be a solution?
It is. No, under the state's policy, if anything on a coastal dune or Berry Beach has to be elevated at least 2 feet above the ground. The purpose for that is to let the water from the
Go through.
ocean flow underneath the structure. On
Right.
this particular site, from what I saw out there after the storm in March, there's some smaller stone here with some sediment, but the larger stones were confined to this area in here, and Samoset Ave. This has got some sand in it, but the bigger stones were up in this area here. Putting this closer to the ocean would only be worse, because the waves come in from here, and they get to a point where they start to drop down. The velocity zone was 17. The ground elevation out here was, this is 9.
Like an 8.
I mean,
But the vegetation is, you know, this is all phragmites in here around the pond. The Rosa rugosa starts about, there's a telephone pole there, and you can see some bare spots in here where the sediment piled up and nothing grew there. But the piles were stockpiled here as well during construction. Some of this has come back. But the plan would be to put the shed up and replace any vegetation that came out, and put it down in here that is more of a buffer for the pond and the rest of the vegetation.
Right. Paul,
Everything from here up is bare, there's no lawn, it's all stone.
no, what I was saying is, having it only 2 feet could be in harm's way. How about if the shed was elevated a little higher, so there'd be less chance of the wave taking the shed away?
The only problem with that is would be, you know, if it was up 3 feet.
That's right.
then
That's
you'd
exactly
have
right.
to-
A ramp?
you'd
Yeah,
have to
a
build
lo-
a ramp,
Yeah, a lot of people do. They have detachable ramps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Or
And
hinged
then you
ramps.
just, you drop it down for the summer when you use it, and then just pick it up. Some people have them configured where they become the door for the winter, or other people just take it off, put it inside, and use the door.
So were you suggesting like an extra foot?
I don't know, what do
At
you guys
least.
think, 3 feet? 4 feet?
And that's if it's even permitted, yes. And I would say also, if it were permitted, there's got to be an extensive planning plan to replace the Rosa. I mean, I'm glad you want to replace it, that's good, but, you know, I think
I
that
mean,
has to
some
be.
of it isn't that healthy because it's.
No,
it
that's
got
true, I was there.
damaged and it's
You're right.
coming, but it's
You're right.
hardy, but. It-
Jen?
I think I echo a lot of Richard's sentiments in terms of it being in the resource area, and then Amy sharing the specific regulations is helpful. It just feels it doesn't feel like a great idea from my perspective.
right, so a new structure in a resource area like the coastal dune would
Right.
generally be prevented, but, so the house that's there now is there just because there was a house there before, and then they elevated it, so that's all good, right? Because we want people to elevate.
Right, but
So this is a
new.
brand new
Yeah.
structure. So if it were not for this provision, which is the one that I read, 1.284, notwithstanding the provisions, it's a project accessory to the existing building may be permitted. And then it brings up also the local bylaw, which does not necessarily have this exemption, but, I mean, I think you could permit it, but you don't have to. So I think if you can get the best you can get, would be good.
Okay.
And this is like maybe totally separate, but just hashing back to some of the Dickens Row on things being close to the road. Is this, like, how close is this to, I know that there's a defined 10-foot right-of-way that theoretically is in the middle, but is this more of a road area that
No.
the people are using
No.
1063?
No,
No.
no one is
Do
quite
you know what I'm
wide.
saying, though?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
no, this is like a private road area, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the, it's one of the broken.
But you know what I'm
roads.
saying?
Yeah, no, okay.
Intersected, you know.
but.
In fact, if you don't know where
it's
you're
not a-
going, you don't even know. where
How
you
to
are.
get there.
Yeah.
So,
Am I
Takes a couple
supposed to
times.
be here,
Yeah.
or am I just on beat?
but I think that there are butters here.
Sure. Okay, everybody got their piece in. So, from the audience, anybody want to speak to this? Yeah, just want to state your name and address, please.
Sure, my name's Peter Mackey, 59 Seaside Road, direct to butter.
Okay.
My wife-
We've got some of your information here, Mr.
I
Mayor.
have some prints of it, it might be easy to look at.
Well, these are pretty helpful. Are they the same as what?
There should be 10 in total.
Okay.
I know we emailed all those files. That's kind of the older perspective before the new structure was built, after a storm. So the more current after the pilings were going in. And the last picture shows
Okay. Thank you.
But just want to say, we lived there for over 21 years now, so we know what it's like to live in a coastal property in the floods. And in my opinion, since the house was now elevated, it's at a greater risk of velocity coming through in that area. The old house, if you look at the pictures, believe it or not, survived decades on an old foundation with a concrete patio. Acted almost like a seawall. Now that the house is up on pilings, the water flows freely, and actually the last storm we had last year, 2018, we had the most inundation, the most area covered with stone and rock and flooding. And my concern is, one is going to disrupt 200 square feet of natural roses and seed growth that animals live in. You get a lot of rabbits, you get a lot of birds that live in that area, plus it acts as erosion control. And at the beginning of the meeting, you had a gentleman here that installed a deck, and nothing grew back. I think the same thing will happen here if you're only 2 or 3 feet above the ground. You're going to kill the roses, and they're not going to grow back. I'm not sure where you would place those. It's also abutting a pond. I think it's probably within the buffering zone of the pond.
It is.
So, no offense to our new neighbors, but, you know, we've been there a long time, we know what it's like.
How is this in?
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
B. Green. I live on the other side of the Turcotte's house, 63 Seaside Road, where the right-of-way leads into our house, and that's really the only reason for the right-of-way is to allow us access into our property. I have a picture from today, I think it's similar to what Peter had, that shows all the vegetation, and so we're not.
When you
talking-
give us these, by the way, we keep them as part of the
Yes,
file.
that's fine. Actually, they're all, with our computers of today.
Thank you.
It's just to show you today, we're not talking about one bush. I mean,
Mhm.
It's a beautiful area. And we've lived on that property since the 60s.
That would be back
And
in
there's
the
never been any structure on that particular land.
I
And
don't know
with
the
every
frame
storm we
reference
get,
there.
if they come back, but
Oh, yes, I
this is
do.
our
Yeah,
house, and
that's
what I
what we're
wanted to
talking
show
about
you,
right
this
here.
isn't even the height of the storm.
Right by the telephone pole.
And our house is up on pilings, and there's usually over 6 feet of clearance
That's what
under
they
our
were
house
talking
that you
about
can
when they were
walk
gonna
through,
put it on.
and you can see
Builder put
that
the
right
pilings
now
over
it's
there,
up about
stored them
4
there,
feet.
and then when they had storms last March,
And this
they
isn't
went
even
all
the
over
height of the
place.
storm. And this is what we typically get at least once a year in a storm. So
Sure.
if you figured the shed's up a couple of feet, the water will go probably
Yeah.
about 3
Yes.
feet into it. And this is just some of the neighboring houses.
No, I think right
This is
here.
even after
this
the
side.
the storm, how high the water is in the area. And they're even further away from where the shed will be. It's,
When you guys are done, we'll send them in the other direction.
Sure.
so this is kind of just showing you how the watering is on. These are taken a couple of days after the March storms that we had. This is where their house is now. And this is about 3 days after the storm. The water just stays in there, and this all becomes, this is Egypt Ave, so it's in back of the house, there's a back of the pond, between the 2 ponds that are there. And these are 2 related to the pilings that I'll sit down so everyone can.
Sure.
But, that I wanted to, one of the,
You have those, I'll send them this way.
Yeah, we send those.
so back around February and March of 2018, when they were building the house and the pilings were going in, and then, of course, we got the predictions about the March storms coming in. So the contractor still had about 12 piles to put in, so they chained them all together. And where they chained them together is exactly where the shed will go. Then the storms came in, broke the chain in the first day. And the piles ended up under our house, in the pond, Egypt Beach, and Man Hill Beach. So that's the power of the water we typically get in there.
Velocity zone.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
VE zone. I mean, it's just the reality. You can't have anything below about 6 or 7 feet. I mean, your houses have to be high.
Why did we?
And your name and-
John Green, 63 Seaside Road.
Thank you.
Why were we made to put our house at 17 mean sea level in the exact footage from the ocean that the shed's going? And we had to put a house up on pipes.
So we have,
We got a little, you know,
so to answer your question, we will, houses have to be elevated to whatever is called for in the FEMA maps. But if someone were to have a garage or something with that, they would be allowed to put that garage at a lower elevation because conceivably there's no good way to use it. So if someone were building a garage and adjacent to that, we would allow them. They still have to have clearance, and as Amy pointed out, it's an accessory piece is allowed, and it has to be a minimum of 2 feet above the grade.
Yeah, the reality is it's gonna get flooded. That's an
We understand, yep.
And part of the concern that I personally have is, if the piling ended up being like under our deck and wrapped around it, where will some of this shed end up?
Okay,
Against our stairs, against another house,
sure.
in the street. It's just the reality of living there. These structures, I mean, there is a neighbor that has one, and they're very close to Egypt Ave where the shed is located.
Mhm.
And in any one of these storms, it always comes off its base. It doesn't get destroyed, but it's off the base, and they're much further away. Footage-wise, I couldn't tell you, I'm not good at calculating distance, and it's also a little bit more protected from what it is.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a plan for anybody else? Do we have a plan for the shed or a foundation plan or anything, Paul?
No, what they're gonna do is to buy from Reed's Ferry. Be one of their sheds that they,
I'm sorry.
My name's Paul Burkott, the applicant. The one change in that is that we're looking at using the builder that we use instead of the going to a prefab.
Mm-hmm.
For a couple of reasons. One is what the idea was to have it be more like the existing structure, similar, built similar, same materials. He has he has more awareness of, what he had to do to be in compliance with the existing house.
Sure. I guess I really don't, my concern isn't so much what your shed looks like.
Yeah.
It's, my concern isn't what the shed looks like. My concern is how the shed is secured, how it's supported, and how it's secured. So when we get a set of plans for a house, along with a site plan, we get a plan from an engineer that shows piles, whatever, depth of the piles, it shows the anchoring mechanism for the piles to the beams to the house, and all that sort of stuff to deal with the point that you're talking about. When you build a house like this, or you elevate an existing house, you have to make provisions to secure that structure to the beams and the beams to the piling. So, to just have a shed come in and be plunked down on some cement blocks, to your point, and I think the owner's saying the same thing, is not a wise decision. I think it's important that we know that this is secure. I also think, though, that there are provisions that would allow for the shed to be constructed as they allow for an accessory dwelling. It's sort of up to the commission's discretion one way or the other. If the applicant can show that the shed is going to be secure and stay there and water can travel underneath it, at the same time, is there a place on here to replicate some of the vegetation that could be lost with the construction of a shed? And I think elevating the shed a little bit higher, there's a little difference between the applicant that just came in. He had a house with a foundation around it, and that foundation actually shades between the foundation and the deck that's above it, actually shades all that. If you have an area that's much smaller, sunlight's gonna penetrate under part of it. Certainly, there's part of it that isn't gonna get sunlight. But if they can demonstrate that they can do some mitigation in another part of the property that would be meaningful and beneficial, I think that would be part of what the commission would like to see.
Can I say something more?
Sure.
You know, right now, there's so much poison ivy over there, and it just keeps, I mean, it looks like, I mean, it's an army of poison ivy, and it just keeps expanding. I'd much rather see, you know, the Rosa, what's it,
Rosa rugosa.
Rosa rugosa is beautiful, they're beautiful plants, and I'd much rather see a lot of those in here versus, I'd love to figure out how to get rid of the poison ivy.
Sure.
And I've told her natural ways to do it,
Yeah.
and things like that.
I mean,
What do you think about that?
I think, is there a,
There's significant phragmites in there.
Yeah, there is.
yeah,
What is it?
Phragmites that look like really tall grass with a tassel at the,
Are they like
The
vines?
feathered thing.
no, it's
No,
it's
they're not
more like,
vines.
They're down by the pond.
Okay, yeah.
so that's an invasive species. If there was an area that you wanted to remove some of that from the commission, that's a positive piece. So removing some from Phragmite
That's the tall grass.
in the proper manner.
Yeah. Yeah, we would definitely
Mike-
be for that.
I realize this is just a shed and we don't want to make a big production out of it, but I think it's important to know how the shed is going to be secure, and if the contractor or whatever can make some sort of a drawing. I don't think you're required to have any sort of structural engineer do that, but we need something to demonstrate that, and it would be better, do you know if he's going to drive these or if he's going to dig them?
I think he was planning on the cement ones that you put down that sort of expand at the base.
Mhm.
You know, they're designed so they sort of anchor to the ground.
Right.
One thing I could say is that we could do it to the same standard that's required in the house in terms of tying the shed to the foundation, and that's pretty extensive.
Right.
Because there's stainless steel clips on every,
Right. Well, I think that's important. I mean, I think if this,
we're gonna make the investment, we don't want it to get washed away
Right.
either.
I think it would be good for the commission to have two things from you. I think we need a plan that shows the support, whether it's a sonotube or whatever it is, and then the beam and the connections to that, to the joists, so that we know that that's going to maintain. I think the thoughts from the commission that maybe a little bit higher is better. At the same time, what good is it if you can't get into it?
Yeah, I can see a little bit, but not a lot.
But raising it might help, and that the point of having a ramp or something that you could literally put up, and you're in harm's way, so anything you can do
Yeah.
to make that better. And then if we could come up with some sort of mitigation, either the removal of some Phragmites,
Give them some direction on that, Frank.
Yeah.
yeah.
Not just generally a mitigation plan.
Yeah,
but
'cause that's not
maybe
easy.
some invasive management, and maybe, I mean, generally, we look for 2-to-1 for the area disturbed. I mean, so if it's a 200-foot alteration, maybe like 400 square feet of replication or
Is there a place
mitigation
that,
somewhere.
is there a place where additional plantings would be beneficial, or is it better to get rid of the frags?
That's kind of tough.
No, he does have room to put more plantings in, but I was out there looking at the Phragmites that are along the Rosa rugosa is kind of, it's what
That's
after
right.
shed that comes into here. And this is all lawn, this house, this is lawn. Down in here, you see the Rosa rugosa, with quite a bit of poison ivy, but the Phragmites are right here. And you might do a combination of taking some of these out, but if you just had to put the Rosa rugosa back, you'd have more than enough room in this area here, outside the Phragmites.
Do both.
I mean, you can see the new Phragmites that are coming this way.
Yeah.
I think maybe combination, because I do think you want to
Combination.
enhance with salt-tolerant plants to give the dune stability, right?
Yeah.
So maybe surrounding the new shed, except for where the door is, maybe that should be all planted out, and then do some, Phragmites management, which does involve a professional company.
How do you do it?
Well, you need like a
Yeah, there's some-
licensed,
There's a
person.
contractor does it.
They apply a herbicide, they cut it at the root and apply a herbicide, and you have to do it repeatedly.
2 or 3 years, isn't
They
it?
have, they have systemic application as well as topical application.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can do it where they do it on the.
Long-term, it's gonna be your own
Oh, you have
benefit
to just-
Yeah.
It's very
to hold that
effective.
back, because
Yeah.
the Phragmites are just gonna take over. So even though it's a condition that applies to this, it could be beneficial to your property.
I'd definitely be interested in looking into that.
Yours too, right? It could be beneficial for you guys too, not to
We
have
don't like
Phragmites.
it, but, and the birds like it.
Yeah, no,
Well, I think there's some native species that we'd rather see planted.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would end up being replaced, not with better plants. At least that would be the goal.
Native plants.
Native plants, better native
Does
plants.
anybody want to add anything? So the question is, do we want to continue
We
this?
have to continue.
And get that information,
Or condition it.
or condition it? I mean, I think it's pretty clear what we want.
Yeah.
I think we should,
could probably
I-
condition it,
I think you could,
keep things moving.
I think you could close it with the conditions that we have an acceptable plan for the support. It's up to you guys. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm-
3 feet up, so, fastened, how it's gonna be fastened, and, planting, and eradication.
The advantage to keeping it open is you get to see the plan and weigh in on it before you close, but if you close now with conditions, it's up to us to come up with conditions that spell out what you're looking for. So, which I think we could do.
If you were to condition it with this information, it'd be subject to your approval anyway.
Right,
So-
but there's really no, so here's the peril, one way or the other. We close it tonight, then the commission can't take any more information, and then the orders that we give you are gonna be specific to what we want. And that's the end of it. If you can't,
You should leave it open.
appeal that.
Leave it open and get the plan, because then we can incorporate it into the document set, so just do that.
I mean, I think you really should keep it open, only because if you take a closer look at the flooding that we showed in those pictures, that's several hours after the tide has receded.
Yeah.
So 3 feet, it's still gonna be in the water.
Yeah, that was my point when I showed you the water under our house.
Mhm.
That wasn't even the height of the storm. The height of the storm goes up 6 feet.
What's the grade, Paul, where the shed is?
About 8, a little over
It's at 8?
A little over 8 feet,
And what's the V zone call?
17,
17 down here,
be over the top of the shed.
this is the,
I don't think it goes that high, but your point is right.
So what would the base flood elevation be where they want to put the shed?
Well, so what he's saying is that the grade's at 8, if they're up 3, it's at 11.
Okay,
And then it's a V17,
It's definitely water,
so,
where they want to put the shed is a V17?
Say one more thing. The idea I have thing about the shed's gonna be parallel with the ocean. You're gonna have 20 feet of building to the ocean to come in and take it out.
With the full force from under the house.
mhm.
You know,
I
the
take-
house is open
I take-
underneath.
5 feet of water under my house.
Yeah.
The existing house that this property's on, they had a patio and they had stones. In 91, it went through 4 feet of the first floor of the house. There's $80,000 damage. It went in the front of the house and out the back.
I think the concern is,
So,
we appreciate the structural, you know, and tying it down and all that, but the water's still gonna be above that, and it's gonna hit it. And that's the concern from a flood perspective that I think most of us have.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how much you tie it down, the water's gonna come in several feet up above that.
Which is, that's why, I mean, if the structure were immediately adjacent to the house, I mean, I feel like it would be advantageous and meet the just landward description that they're talking about in this accessory.
So let's just say that you put this structure right up against the house.
Right.
So it's an addition,
At the same elevation.
well,
Like it's
But-
cantilevered?
but, well, it doesn't have to be cantilevered, it could be piles or whatever. But if they, let's say they came in for a garage, and they said they wanted a garage on this house, we wouldn't tell them to put the garage at elevation 17.
Right.
We wouldn't allow it,
You don't have to.
right?
Right.
If a new garage, we wouldn't be building it.
And velocity zone, we
Let's
wouldn't be
just-
doing.
Get permitted.
We
When,
would.
when there's, I don't know what was at the existing property before, if there was anything like that. But if someone came in with a project, and you can go back to old projects that we've conditioned, and people have asked for garages, the garage will be that's why they have this provision to allow for these buildings to be built 2 feet above that, so that there's a place for that. I mean, it does seem kind of contrary to
It does.
to the area,
Because
but
it's like, I mean, if they came in and proposed a garage to put it back in here, we would permit that?
Well,
they have the right to apply for
I know.
it, and then we have to look at it.
I'm just trying to
Just
get
restricted.
educated.
It says, the accessory project may include a small shed or a parking area.
Not a
That-
garage.
That doesn't say garage to me,
No, but
or a
we,
parking area for a residence.
but we have conditioned garages when people have been building these pieces. So,
In velocity
Yeah,
zones.
yeah,
Down on Humrock.
on Humrock, yeah.
Frank and I first started.
right.
And they had a ramp up to the.
Yep. The house was this way and the,
Permanent.
yep,
Well, I think
There.
Paul, the owner, they've heard the concerns, you've seen the pictures, you've heard the concerns from your neighbors. I think if you want to take a look and see whether you think you can build something that is going to work, and resubmit those, or come back to the commission with those pieces, and we'll go from there.
How long
It
do you
seems
need,
like we should
Paul?
keep it open.
You should probably come back in a month, because we have to have this in 2 weeks before the meeting. You give us a couple of weeks if we can drop together.
7:15?
That's what I'm looking at. Is that
A
okay?
month, yeah.
Okay, I make a motion that we continue 61 Seaside to July 15th at 6:20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So in a month, we'll be back.
Okay, thank you.
So 171 Old Oak Bucket Road is being withdrawn.
Correct.
I mean, it's like.
So we don't have to, I don't have to read anything.
Exactly. And put in some kind of-
They're gonna lose it.
and it's gonna go into the pond.
Yes.
And then there's gonna be debris and garbage.
Yes, that's a big concern.
in the pond.
If you guys want to talk about it, why don't you just go down the hall and then we can keep going. 37 Otis Road, applicant is Chuck Welch. On June 17th at 6:35 PM, the Town Hall Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Chuck Welch to elevate a dwelling at 37 Otis Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is James Garfield, an engineer at Morse Engineering, representing the applicant Chuck Welch for the notice of intent at 37 Otis Road. To familiarize yourself with the plan, I've outlined the property in green and then our existing single-family home in orange. So as the site currently sits, the first floor of that building is at elevation 12.1. The entire site's within the FEMA flood zone AE elevation 15. And we're just proposing to raise the building up onto a concrete foundation equipped with flood vents to an elevation of 17.1, so 2.1 feet above the flood zone. With that, I'll leave it to you for questions.
Penny?
AE.
No, I don't have, raise everything up
Raise the roof.
Raise it from the bottom up.
Doug,
I'm good.
Richard,
I'm good.
Lisa,
Sure.
Jen, Amy?
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I mean, you're not changing the grades,
No.
right? It doesn't look like you are. Just raising it up 2 feet above base flood elevation. There's an elevation certificate in here, stamped by Jeff. We have the foundation plans. So it looks pretty complete.
Anybody in the audience? What's the foundation gonna be, James?
I know it's a concrete foundation, but it's kind of the extent of my knowledge on the matter.
With the flood vents.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have a plan for that?
Yes,
Okay.
it's in the notice.
Okay, take a motion.
I make a motion we close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2731 Hood Road, applicant is St. Mary and St. George Coptic Orthodox Church. On June 17, 2019, at 6:40 PM, the Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetland hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws and Section 32050, I don't think I've ever done that one before, Town of Scituate Stormwater Bylaw, regarding the application of St. Mary and St. George Coptic Orthodox Church for installation of a 1,750 square foot playground area, clearing 50,800 square feet of wooded area and converting to lawn, and an after-the-fact installation of above-ground propane tanks on property located at 2731 Hood Road, Scituate. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
And
Good
then,
evening.
no,
Oh.
there's another notice. There's no discussion period. So you just read
We're
the,
gonna continue it.
there's a
July 1st.
request to continue.
So,
I hope you have it, Frank. Do you? I hope you do too.
yeah, we'd like to ask, this is from Bishop, is it Mike
Father Bishoy.
Bishoy?
Yep.
We'd like to ask for a continuation of the hearing to June 17th to be scheduled on the agenda of the next meeting.
July 1st.
July
July
7th,
1st.
July 1st.
At 6:20.
Please let me know. Yep. So,
I make a motion to continue 2731 Wood Road to July 1st at 6:20.
all in favor?
All right.
Well, that explains a lot.
Thank you very much.
I was wondering why you were only here by yourself.
But he came.
So now we have determination of applicability for 31 Tilden Road. On, if I got this right?
So nobody's here for this one?
31 Tilden.
Addition and porch.
Can we skip it?
Well, we have to, we should, it's been advertised, so we can open it and we can continue it.
Well, let's see.
Or
if
you
we
could
can
do the
get
other
through
ones
it.
first.
On,
So just, yeah, read it.
well, we can do these out of order. Do you want to do the others first?
Oh, that'd be so nice.
There you go.
Yeah, good idea, Frank.
Good idea.
Which, where's your project?
The next two.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. So, on June 17th, 2019, the 6:15 meeting, Town Hall Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Melinda Shaw for determination of applicability to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw to remove an existing concrete retaining wall, bring grade down to meet existing driveway, and add 50 square feet of asphalt to driveway on property at 17 Roberts Drive. Scituate abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
He skipped to the last. So
It's a
he
different
just flipped
one.
all the way to the last one and.
He went to 17?
Yeah.
Okay.
He went to 17 instead of that other, just for clarification.
Is that all right with you?
I'm
11
both, but
on
my
here.
work plan.
Oh, no, it's
the next one
fine.
has to sit through that one.
17 Roberts Drive.
All right.
Oh, there we go. This one is not very exciting.
There you go. So fire away.
All set? Okay. All set. I'm Tish Campbell, landscape designer representing the Shaws, my clients for this project. What she would like to do, from the pictures you can see, when she backs out of her driveway, this is a retaining wall right here. it's really difficult to make this turn just getting out of the driveway. So this is the old septic that was raised up like a 4-foot retaining wall all the way around this way. So what she'd like to do is remove the decommissioned septic field and remove part of the wall. This is the flood zone, so primarily outside the flood zone. This is the wetlands from the abutting, and so this is the 100-foot, so out of the 100-foot buffer. So this portion of the wall, in order to maintain the grade, next door there's a pool and landscaped area, so to maintain that, this wall would remain. The grade would be brought down to the existing grade this way, and then they would like to add a small little sliver of asphalt there so she can actually, you know, drive out of her driveway safely. And that's pretty much the extent of this exciting
I guess
project.
that's the
Just to
driveway.
remove that.
So this wall would be coming out.
Yep.
Yeah,
This would be reduced to the grade here.
yeah.
Then this little thing here, they want to asphalt, if I'm doing this right.
Yes, you are, thank you.
Okay.
Lovely.
This wall would stay. So
this
that,
is
so that,
basically taking this out
and,
adding
and all this, and that,
So it just brings it down to driveway level.
Yeah,
So is
Instead
it,
of a 4-foot high.
jumping out of turn here a little bit, but is the wall on the east side, is that gonna stay as a retaining wall?
Yeah, that will stay as a retaining wall. So it's a whole poured concrete wall. So likely, we'd look and see how ugly it is, and then if it is poured ugly, we would just veneer that, so it would maintain the grade on that side.
Is it necessary to,
Well,
for the, on the other side?
the other side, yes, is
Yeah,
a
okay.
swimming pool landscaping, and they have a retaining wall, but it would be best if, for the client to keep this whole area retained on her property as well. If you see what I mean.
once it's brought down to grade, what would be the surface there? Would it be grass or?
Most likely grass.
most likely will be.
It will be grass. Well, I mean, I would love to think about
Do you want
that.
it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm,
Yeah.
You want to see this?
like, how high is that retaining wall?
I guess
About
that's,
4 feet?
And is it the dirt on the east side of the retaining wall up to the top of that?
Yes.
So-
There's,
The plan shows the pool on the other side.
Yeah, so my only question, and because this happened to me once, is that
You want to
sometimes
make
when
sure it's
those
not
are
going to fall
designed-
it's not a
over.
balanced load.
Yeah.
Right, because with the horizontal 90-degree bends supply strength to
to the retaining wall that side.
the, right, so
Yeah, so-
it might be something to look at to make sure that
Yeah.
the
Well, not only
Is that-
that, but it wasn't designed really as a retaining wall. It was holding in a septic
right, so
system.
it had dirt on both sides. So
Right.
I don't know how well reinforced it is.
Yeah,
if
that's
it's-
something
That's a
that,
good point.
And if there's
It
no,
is a good
if
point.
there's no wing walls coming back off the other side, then it loses that strength, so
The
it could
stability, so
allow-
what we did do is have it slightly a return on both sides of it, so it does have a slight return on that side of it. But I understand it would have to look and see. Right now, it's just sort of like sandy.
Yeah,
area
and
of
I
that,
mean,
so
from
it's nothing, yeah.
our perspective, it's that, that's not, it's just a caution, I guess, is
Right.
that you might wanna have somebody look at that and make sure that it's,
Yeah.
cause you could, cause you could always slope up against it.
Slope it.
Right,
So you don't
Yeah.
leave it vertical, that you put up
Yeah,
a few feet and then slope that grass area down and you can supply.
yeah.
That would be my only,
Good one.
Yeah, we
Precaution.
will look at the structural integrity and see if we could, most
Yeah.
likely we would, because sometimes by the time you get down to the end of it, they're not so lovely to look at, so the top part of it is probably, so we could do a sloping grass down there, because there's plenty of space in that way.
and the abandoned septic system, it's been abandoned, was it in use at one point in time?
Yes.
yeah, I mean, the cliff's got sewered, so they'll just have to,
Okay, so I just didn't know how long it was in action and if, what the soil would be like, if it's contaminated or not, when you remove it.
well, most of them, like if you were having a new septic system, they'll oftentimes have to dig up
Yeah, and it should be
a
removed
system,
off-site.
and they have to, yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, that's all. So I would just, I would imagine that, oh, this is an RDA, so we
Yeah.
have a condition, okay, right.
That's correct. This plan says as-built type thing.
you know? Where is this one?
I don't know, I think it's all of you.
You know what, that was an old house that was there with a cesspool or something. That goes way back.
You know, the stuff from the 1800s isn't going to work too well.
I know that, but I mean, it was in my packet.
Who are we up to?
Right.
Richard?
So I do have the packets just so that you would have the septic, you would have the wetlands, and they have that, all those kinds of
It
things.
says site plan.
No, that's not.
That's an old plan.
Yeah.
That was
Lisa?
2006.
Jen?
No, I appreciated Doug's commentary. It was really helpful.
Amy?
Oh, yes,
No, I think this one's pretty straightforward, actually. I think it meets the requirements of a -3.
as long
Well, that's not really our purview, but I think it's good advice.
Second.
All in favor? On June 17th, 2019, turn to 6:15 meeting at the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Laura Donovan Bannister for a determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw to extend a stone wall to provide level surface around house, create a fire pit, and what kind of court?
Piton or
Piton.
pool or whichever, yeah.
Piton?
Piton.
It's just like bocce.
Oh, okay. Court and landscape around the house and driveway on property located at 797 First Parish Road. Scituate abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Again, Tish Campbell, landscape designer representing the clients for Bannister. This is the house on First Parish, the wetlands, this is the 50, and this is the 100. This area that is in green is already landscape use, but right now just existing lawn. You can see from the pictures that it's a little bit lumpy and quite steep, so it's a little bit difficult to navigate all the way around the house. So what we propose to do is to raise so that this part here, this is an existing stone wall, and by stone wall we just mean, you know, boulders sort of stacked, not even farmer, but sort of stacked boulders. And that's what we would do here in order to make this area a level area around the house so that they can walk around the house, sort of basically that way. This is a 20-foot diameter pea stone fireplace, a permeable fire area with a fire pit in that area. And this is the pétanque court, and it's timbers, 8 by 20 timber type of thing. It also has to perk because it would become like a pool if it didn't.
It's just state right.
That way. And then
And your name is, sir?
I'm
Oh, I'm
Robert
sorry.
Bannister, 797 First Parish Road.
Thank you.
I have the honor of being Laura Young from Bannister 7.
There you go.
And then this part within the 100 is the landscape areas. We're doing, you know, shrubs around the foundation and meadow planting in the front area. And this part is outside of the country. Any questions about?
When Penny's done, can I jump over here?
That'll be tomorrow.
Where was the, oh, you're getting so close. That's great. Where's the, like, the 50 or 100, so?
That was the 15, that's one. So in this area where you would normally not disturb it, it's already a lumpy gravy lawn, and so
Yeah.
what we'd like to do is just make it a little bit from this elevation down to there, just a little bit of a smoother grade.
Uh-huh.
So that's why what we do is carry on. This is the stacked, existing stacked already there. What we do is carry on those, you know, or, so create a little bit around there so we can raise the grade over that way.
Uh-huh. And the sauna's existing?
No, sun is outside. That's just kind of like outside.
But that's already,
And
that's
no,
already,
that's like farther over, but that's outside of your 100 foot.
it's not part of this plan, it doesn't exist right now.
It does not exist right
Okay.
now. It is a dream though, but.
Oh, it's a dream vision board. Got it.
There you
Haha.
go. This is the Keystone Fire Pit area that they talk about.
I see this for a second.
Is there anything else on here that's not happening?
Oh,
that walkway is,
Existing,
this brown
Existing.
one between the fire pit and the
wood chip,
sauna?
yeah, just a wood chip pathway, yeah.
Existing or new?
Proposed.
Okay. I understand what's
Right,
proposed versus
and
what,
what's existing.
yeah.
That's a good point, yes.
But
There's no
actually,
hard surface.
actually, anything like that, you'd want to condition it at this time. If you're in
Right.
here and in front of us, you realize the car is not out of that, but it's the wood chip. It's in the 100, it's not critical, and it's pretty non-invasive kind of project. Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to grade or disturb in any
Yep.
way, it's mostly just a.
Lisa? Richard?
I'm good.
Doug?
Good.
Penny?
I'm fine, there's nothing hard going in the 100.
Amy?
All right, well, my comments are, I mean, I realize that this appears to be a relatively new owner.
How long have you owned the house?
Since 2009, April.
2009. The last thing that we have on record for this was when the property changed hands from the Whites. At that time, we have a notice of intent from SPAF for the septic system.
Mm-hmm.
So while we did not have Tish confirm the line is from 2009. It did go out there, and the first thing that struck me was the fact that there was a pretty large shed within the 50 right off the driveway. So I'm not sure at which point the shed went in, but it was not there when the Whites owned the house. And
What
then
year was that, Amy, when the Whites?
They were, yeah, 2009, right. So it must be, and then, I mean, so the house was built in 1973, which means that, you know, you might have some disturbances in the buffer that predate the Wetlands Protection Act. So, I mean, I see that there is already, and you can see where the tree line is, and it's within the 50. So there is lawn, but they are proposing to fill in the 50.
Right.
So, I mean, honestly, I feel like this plan's a little bit ambitious within the buffer zone. And for
Can you
what
put
they're
the board back up,
proposing,
please?
I mean, I would like to encourage plantings or enhancement within the 50-foot buffer rather than seeing fill there. And it's not ideal. I think they could, I mean, you could give it a positive determination and have it go to a notice of intent, or we could try to work out something where maybe they add something here and.
Right.
I'm not sure, those are my comments.
So, I'm hearing what Amy said, and my thoughts were sort of running along that. You are working within the 50 and you're adding some fill and changing some rocks, but to your point, you've already got disturbance in that area. And I would think that some sort of planting, an additional plantings for mitigation, maybe along that wall or something, would go a long way to dealing with that disturbance. If we could come up with,
And the shed too, Frank.
where is the shed?
There's a new shed that's right in the 50 off the driveway. It's right at the top, yeah, right there.
In that section of it.
Okay.
Which,
And it's just.
that really never, I mean, you know.
Well, unfortunately, oftentimes the sheds go in because they're not, but to you know, you were here for the one earlier, it's in a velocity zone, so technically a disturbance in the 50 is a disturbance, whether it needs a building permit or not. And I guess I'd be just inclined to think about additional plantings, just mitigation along that area to, that's all goes into a wooded area, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
A wooded area in that area.
Yeah,
It's
everything on the
Laurel
other side of
Woods.
the rocks.
Pardon me?
I said everything on the other side of the rocks is wood.
Okay.
There's a pretty big wetland system and a detention basin on the left side of the house, which is associated with Laurelwood.
Yeah.
You know,
And
the Norwell subdivision.
how about our water resource area? Is that all, is that in our, because a lot of this stuff is all drainage to the Herringbrook.
Yeah, I'm not not so sure if it's in ours, but I would say that it is in Norwell's, honestly, because Norwell's well fields are right up there. So,
So I'm just trying to think of, I mean, you're a
Yeah.
landscape person, what would you propose to add to that area that would be meaningful mitigation?
Into this area, we could definitely plant into the area, in the idea being that if you have the house and the stones, is that you wanted to ease the grade, ease the grade down to the stones, so that it is entirely possible to plant wetlands plants, any kind of shrubs and things along the stone area without any difficulty. That would be lovely, right? We have all kinds of plants that are going in.
I'm not sure how much of
in that
wetlands
area.
plants are gonna grow there, but even if they were plants that worked well for
Oh, so
birds
yeah,
or
absolutely.
that sort of thing.
Would that be all right with you?
Sure.
Okay.
We got tons of birds. Anything you put in the yard to encourage birds, my wife would love.
So we have some plethora and some lindera that are going over this area. We could actually carry that, around into that area. That would be.
What kind of those in the,
Plethora is the summersweet. It's the shrub that's white, blooms in the middle of the summer, often through different kinds of woods. Lindera is the swallowtail larval food, bright yellow, blooms really early in the spring.
Okay.
Two different kinds.
so can we,
This is all meadow
The
planting,
only thing
so
is-
lots and lots for pollinators.
so a determination is, I mean, there is area where we could condition it, but it's just, you don't have anything, there's not really accountability with a determination, right? Because it's a, here's the permit, and we're not really checking on it.
oh,
But it,
Although
but there's,
it's
but it seems like
non-professional.
it would be overkill for a notice of intent, you know what I mean, for a positive, so. I don't know, maybe.
can I
we
just
could
ask
do
one question?
some-
What, the plan that you had before
Some
was,
markers,
your,
conservation markers?
was Tish.
Yeah.
This one's Amy
Oh,
Martin.
this one's Amy, yes, because I work with different people.
Okay.
So, I got my bills.
Yeah.
So, so I designed this,
Got
but
it.
I also work with Amy, and so that's why I represent this one.
Okay, just curious.
Do you want to say your thing again?
Oh, just maybe some conservation posts,
Yep, I think that would be a good idea.
enhance the
So
buffer area,
Conservation
conservation
post is a little-
posts.
A marker, it says this area is a wetlands resource, so don't.
Stay out.
Yeah, don't mess with it.
They
It's
don't
for
really
the
show
animals,
like
not you.
birdhouses, you know, bad,
Where would-
birdhouse or bad,
At the-
bad
on the
house.
50.
But how do we, how
So
do we
they
do that
have
if we
one of
can't
everything,
condition it?
they feed the deer actually, they're the only people in Flanders who feed the deer, and they have, bird baths or
Yeah.
feeders.
No, it looks like, I mean, the
That's
plan,
lot of
the
stuff.
plan itself looks like a fairly natural plant, so we appreciate that and would rather have the input than find out that it was just built. So I think that the crux is that if we have a set of, if this was an order of conditions, we'd have a set of orders and say you do these things. With an RDA, we get, if you wind up with a negative determination, then you can just go forward. Can we put these pieces, can you write those into an RDA?
Yeah, there's like a small area where we could put stuff in there.
Okay.
And, I mean, what's your project timing? Because the whole thing is it's, we do a lot of permits, so if this
Yeah.
project, that's the thing, we issue this now, but in 3 years, I'm not really gonna
I
be
think it's
thinking of
part
this
of it.
project.
Right.
And so then I guess what would happen is, maybe if they file a notice of intent and this file comes up later on down the road and people go, oh, you never did that, then you get called on it if we don't follow it, but, or we'll just put it on our list of projects to monitor.
I get the
guess.
feeling that this is gonna get put together correctly, and I think if you can
Yeah.
get those plans into Amy so that we have, good documentation as you go forward, maybe notify the commission when the work is in
Okay, so
place.
revise the plan to show some
To show
plantings
some
in the
plantings
buffer.
in this area.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
And then also a couple of
Markers.
conservation markers.
Conservation markers.
Yes.
Amy, where are you asking them to put the conservation markers? Because the buffer zone's already been disturbed.
I'd say it's gotta go
Along
by the wall.
Existing, tree line.
Tree line.
Yeah, the tree
Yeah.
line.
Okay.
So it's not gonna be at the 50, it's gonna be along the,
It's gonna be just so where the canopy,
right.
yeah.
okay,
Yeah, in front of that.
We don't need them every 25 feet by any means. I mean,
okay.
just a
So like
couple of them.
two,
Couple of them in there would be
Yeah.
great.
if we put one here and one here or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
The ones that flash.
You know, those
With the
stop
laser.
signs.
Okay.
But, and also just, it's in our professional interest to do the right thing by the ecosystem, by you as. We will
Okay.
definitely do that.
Thanks, Tish.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Then I make a motion for a -3, which is plus 1.
Second.
Good luck with your project.
All in favor?
Aye, thank you. So do we wanna open this, 31 Tilden?
Yeah, I mean, open it and we'll see if we can get through it. If we've got questions, maybe we'll have to continue it, but we might be able to get through it.
On June 17th, 2019, at the 6:15 meeting in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Arcadia Homes for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act in the Scituate Wetlands bylaw to remove an existing porch and kitchen addition and install a new family room and kitchen in the same footprint, to install new deck and stairs to backyard and add new front porch and entry on property located at 31 Tilden Street,
Road.
Tilden Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Right, so this must be a flip, I'm gonna guess. But it's a lovely property.
Are you
And I
being
didn't,
sarcastic?
but so they're taking the screen porch, if you look at the plan, and it looks like they want to tear that down, pour a foundation, and put in a kitchen. New kitchen is new, yeah, new kitchen, and new family room, in the same footprint. But then it says install new deck and stairs off the family room.
backs too, sir.
Okay, so
Why don't,
the new deck and stairs is outside the 100. There's a nice fence at the back of the property which really delineates, you know what I mean, the untouched buffer. So otherwise, this house has been here for quite a long time. I'm not sure when it was built, but a long time ago, maybe in the 40s or 50s.
So the shed's probably old, it's sitting in the 50s.
Oh, yeah, no, this is all, it's in that stretch of, just off of Stockbridge and the early numbers of Tilden,
Yeah,
not far out of town at all, on the left.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
I mean, it's, and
Frank, do
they
you wanna
did
see it?
have the wetland line professionally delineated by Holmes. So, we could issue a negative. I think it fits into the exemption of converting uses accessory that's already been disturbed provision. You know what I mean, without a notice of intent. So I think you could clearly issue a -3, but I guess if you have any questions or you want a limit of work, I mean, they're not here to agree to it, so.
I think that's a concern.
Right, we need a representative from the
Yeah.
project.
I don't know why we just don't continue this, and let them come in and,
Okay.
Yeah.
Are Kia Homes out of Duxbury? As I like to say, Deluxebury.
Yep. I agree, I think we need to continue it, make them come.
Yeah.
May not be that hard, but they need to show up. October would be good.
they may not be happy with that one.
I make a motion to continue 31 Tilden Road, RDA to July 1st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. What do you want to do next? You want certificates of compliance?
Sure.
We don't have any orders?
No. So the certificates, I'm gonna say, we're gonna issue them all.
Okay.
You're
One was
happy?
a septic system, new septic system on Edith Homes. One was an addition and mitigation plantings at Lightship Lane, really nice property. And I guess a number of years ago, they were in front of you
Oh,
and
yes,
we
yes.
had a really big, extensive planting
Uh-huh.
plan
Yeah.
on the marsh.
Right down to the marsh.
Yeah, I know, and it's lovely, and, so that one's all set, it's been growing for a few years.
They put an addition on too. didn't
And they have a little addition.
Yeah, on the
village,
side.
but-
Yeah, it was lovely, they were nice people.
Yeah, and then 49 Glades, it's in a really old septic system, a rebuild. And then 28 Gilson is next to the causeway there, it was that porch addition, which is similar to this one on Tilden, where they took a deck and they made it into a family room, family.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, how about assigning a member to the Scituate Harbor Resiliency Master Plan Task Force Committee?
So, at the Coastal Advisory Committee meeting, Kyle Boyd, who replaced Nancy Durfee as our Coastal Resource Officer, right? That's
Yeah.
his title.
I guess.
Was talking about the different things that the town's trying to do with regard to coastal resiliency. And part of that is dealing with the harbor, the business area specifically. And so they had a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, or the Chamber came to the last meeting and and the planning board, and talking about how to deal with some of these issues in the harbor area. So they're gonna try to build a committee,
They received a grant.
yep, and so they're trying to put together a real program for that, and they're looking for members from different boards to be on that. So I don't know if anybody has an interest in that. It would, I think from our standpoint, serving on that committee is gonna be compliance. You know, they'll be dealing with the commission in terms of how to be able to build some of these things. So I think that's why they're trying to get, I mean, I serve on a coastal advisory now. Richard did before me, as a, sort of talking about some of these ideas seem great, but can they be built? You know, are they allowed? So I think that's important that a commission member could serve on this. I don't see it being a lot of heavy lifting, because I don't.
Well, he has it spelled out in his letter. I mean, I think that there's, for the grant, I think they're partnering with MAPC, and so there's a certain amount of outreach they need to do. So I think it's
Right.
over a 2-year period of time, you're looking at like 10 meetings or something like that, maybe even 12 meetings,
10 meetings over 2 years?
something like that, yeah.
It's a couple of months, they'll meet, it's not
Yeah.
a weekly
Sales
thing
pitch just got a
whereby-
lot better for this committee.
Right, and I think, well, it should be really interesting, I mean, you'll talk about things like making Scituate Harbor more resilient to climate change and flooding that's going on, try to figure out a solution to get continued business district.
Is that the time limit?
I guess so, that's it, we gotta go.
If you wanna think about it, we can think about it, but the
I
first
think
meeting
that-
is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, if you wanna join up,
But you don't necessarily have to be at tomorrow.
that's a point, Paul. So, not everybody speak at once.
Wanna do that?
Yeah,
You sure?
tomorrow, yeah.
All right. We can pass the baton on this a little bit too, maybe.
Sure.
That'd be,
Where's the,
Floating.
how about you and Jen, kinda share that?
where's the meeting?
We'll hang
Call
out.
us tomorrow, we'll let you know.
Okay.
There you go.
Or maybe Jen, can you look up where the meeting is?
correspondence,
Oh, okay.
grab it.
Yeah.
We can,
It's in the correspondence?
I'm gonna guess.
In the correspondence?
And I'll let you know what it's about, Jen.
Yeah. I think it's an opportunity for us to hang out.
There you go.
Yeah, opportunity for us to hang out, talk about Frank.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You don't want to miss those
Any
opportunities.
macarons?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll make a snack.
Oh, boy. Maybe this is, Lisa, what do you?
Are we done now before we really go off the
No.
road?
Yeah,
No,
we're getting
we're
close.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Violations, agents report, anything else you want to add to this delightful meeting?
Oh, no.
Okay,
I
good.
don't think so.
Okay, go
All right.
to the,
What do you mean by
our,
that?
our meeting last week.
What do you mean?
I don't want to add anything right now. I'm
Okay.
good.
Oh,
We'll meet again in 2 weeks.
So
can
we,
talk about it then.
So we had our pre-bid meeting at the Mount Hope Building, and what were there, 4 or 5
Yeah. contractors,
prospective
yeah.
contractors there, and several other people have taken out plans, and there was some really good interest in the project, so hopefully we'll have bids.
The 26th open.
Um, Yeah,
So
hopefully that'll be off like a herd of turtles.
hopefully.
we have to go faster than that.
Let's
Well,
hope
we just
so.
want it, finally.
I know.
This is a big step.
Oh, yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that bids are out.
The bid documents are huge. I mean, it's a lot of,
Oh, my word, I couldn't believe that.
all the boilerplate that goes with that, but whatever.
I'm glad I heard
But it's
that.
good to see that we got some really good interest, so,
And there were some good questions
yeah.
asked that gave us a little thought.
So, did you make the trails?
Sure did. I
Can
got
you-
stuff for you. I've been waiting an
Yeah.
hour and a half for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh, lucky Frank.
Fire away.
We did have a trails meeting last week, well attended. It was good to see everybody. We've taken a couple months off. Good progress on Damon and Crosby, going back and forth. So we should have the final versions of those, the final draft versions of those for the next meeting, and some discussion on the text on the back. So hopefully all 5 of those should really be wrapping up. The open item is the formal names of the trails, and I wanted that to be Frank's decision, or not necessarily, not that it's all on you, but it shouldn't be decided by that
Right.
committee through an email chain. So I have the names, and we can go over them.
Okay, that'd be helpful, because we do want to be respectful. The people that sold the property to, like the Damon one,
Very much agree.
you know, there was, the Damon family lost a grandson. He was killed on Clap Road in a car accident, and I believe they
Little
wanted
kid,
that,
9 years old.
they wanted that property called the David Damon.
You have so much more background than an email chain from one person to another, which is why
Okay, so we'll do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you
we,
gotta
we'll
figure
do
out-
that.
we'll do that. I'll make a cake.
We don't have to, there we go, all right. And we'll do the RDA at the
I
same
was gonna say,
time.
are we gonna do the RDA too?
That's it, it'll be the 3 of us will do that.
I'm gonna make a blackberry
all
lime
right,
cake this
all
week.
right.
It's gonna be crazy.
What kind?
Blackberry lime.
Oh, I may have to be invited to this.
Right.
That's how you get people to meet.
One would think. I've offered a banana cake several weeks.
All right, it's been busy, but things are planning out,
Yeah.
so we'll get it done.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I know, I appreciate it.
But they are
So
all
be subtle.
very excited and just so over the moon with the progress on the plans. So
This
a
is
lot of
coming together.
appreciation.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of hard work.
Well, but a lot of appreciation for the time that you guys have spent on that. They definitely know that.
It's,
We're
it'll
coming
just be
together.
nice.
So just get ready for your phones to come off the hook when we start clearing trees on conservation land.
It's gonna be a nightmare, I'm sure.
I'm sure it will be.
But we've
It
had
will work
public
out.
meetings, numerous public meetings. So, but they will, yeah, the phones will start ringing, especially on Crosby,
Yeah.
the road. They're gonna just go, but it is what it is.
We have a senior work-off program in Scituate,
Yeah,
and Linda, the director of the COA, has a interested volunteer who she'd love to put to work, who's very interested in helping the outdoors, the community. So if there's anything you can think of, I can try to.
You know what I gotta do is I have to make sure that a couple of folks that do the work are using that program. A couple of our volunteers would be eligible for that, and I've encouraged them to go down and find out about it, but I'm not sure that they're taking advantage.
100% not.
I know.
They should, and I believe that it's fiscally driven, so we're wrapping up
Right.
the fiscal
The
year.
fiscal year, yeah.
June 30th,
Yeah.
so we'll be ripe for money and people
Right.
to take advantage of that opportunity.
They've just gotta be a good team player, that's all.
Yeah, know how to use a saw.
And
Well,
you
or
wanna pay
send them to the
attention about
driftway.
it.
Yeah, that's true.
The driftway is kind of like on its own.
Yeah, actually, we do. We need help at the Driftway
Yeah,
badly, so.
we were alerted that the volunteers from the high school,
Yeah.
IXL, will be there in August this year.
Yeah.
Oh,
they-
good.
down in
Is that
July.
right? July 8th. Oops. Oh, I screwed that up, okay, yeah.
Will they give us like a little heads up a couple of days before, just something, if,
Yeah. July 8th.
July 8th.
like, I need to
You're
know,
going
like,
down July 8th?
That's when they're starting,
And then
Okay.
they'll be
Monday
there.
and Tuesdays,
Okay, the rest of the summer.
for 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's really, it's good for them too.
Yeah, and then
they
Did you
really
want to
enjoy it.
coordinate or something with them?
We'll-
I just like to go by and meet them
Yeah.
and chat with them. If
Yeah.
you don't
They're
mind,
really cute kids.
like, giving me a shot.
Do you want me to remind you on July 7th?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, Joe.
Text them.
Wait a minute, you're baking a cake first, and now you gotta remind them for this?
It's bad. There's a
I'm
lot
just- Hey, Frank and I go way back.
to see.
I guess.
Having more senior moments every day.
You got nothing.
We did have a good, Penny and Amy and I had a good chance to walk with, around Go Green,
And Richard.
And Richard.
Yeah.
I was there too.
Yeah.
which was
He was
an
there.
eye-opener.
We had to walk.
Never thought it was that big.
Yes.
Never thought that area was that big.
Yeah. But it seems like in our walk around there, like they're within the confines of the property that they're supposed to be in.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they're close to the Driftway Park, but I think some of the trails for the Driftway Park have actually moved closer
Close.
To them.
to Go Green. I mean, some of those social trails have actually skirted out a little bit. So people are out there walking and thinking that Go Green's encroaching on them, when in fact, the reason the dog park went where it did is because it wasn't on conservation-controlled property.
Right.
So the town retained a portion of that area between the sewage treatment plant and where the windmill is, and the dog park was purposely not in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. And so the only question would be, maybe there's a little bit of encroachment on an isolated wetland, and how long ago that really happened. There's a history of that property that goes back,
Before Go Green even.
you know, well, it was
Oh,
a
yeah.
construction yard when the sewer treatment plant was built, and then the town used it for parking, fishing. Fishermen could leave extra vehicles and stuff there, bait trucks and stuff,
Oh,
because,
wow.
well, in the harbor, they would be parked in Cole Parkway, and then when the summertime, they'd get ripe. So, so they moved them up there.
They get right.
And then, when they did a couple of large sewer projects, the contractor for the sewer projects set up a yard there to process material and stockpile material. So they sort of moved out in a big area there, and then when they wrapped it up, they were reconfiguring the transfer station, and so they took the composting and all that sort of stuff out of the transfer station area and located it there. And then they found a private contractor, and he's gone. But they know that they've got to rein that in, and they seem to be making some efforts to do that. But it's not an easy place to keep manicured, that's for sure. I mean, there's just,
Oh, no. But the disturbance that's on the outer edge is very old disturbance.
Right.
You know, it isn't like
Old Phil.
people.
yeah, it's
have
not
been
mulch
saying-
and brush, it's
Yeah,
actually
no.
crushed gravel, and it was
Exactly.
probably residue that was left over from either that sewer contractor
Yeah,
or whatever, or,
But people have been blaming him that he's doing it.
well,
Definitely.
but his pile's just getting higher.
Well,
and
his pile gets higher, I agree with that, but the disturbance on the outer edge there, that's been there for a long time.
The other tricky part with that is that they pay a lease to the town, and then they're allowed to charge contractors, landscapers, all that stuff to dump that. But anyone from the town that has lawn refuse, stuff like that, dumps for free.
Yes.
So it's a service to the town at the same time. So you have a storm or something like we had Riley or whatever, everybody's cleaning up the yard and they're just bringing it in as fast as they can. And on top of that, he's taking material, that he can charge for,
Yep.
which he uses to pay his lease. So,
I think there's also an issue with non-residents dumping. It's been posted on a few other, town pages.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do
Non-residents?
not stop anyone, and
Yeah.
I don't think they check anyone, that's true. You're supposed to have a transfer station sticker to
Sticker.
use it.
I see.
No, they've never checked. I go there all the time. They've never checked.
Yeah, but
Why
you're not
would-
really gonna go to Scituate to get rid of your stuff.
No,
right?
you wouldn't
I
think
mean,
so. Not lawn
Every
refuse.
town has their own place, I know Hanover does, Norwell does, I'm sure Marshfield does, I know Marshfield does.
Marshfield does,
Hanover's
yes.
free if you're a
Actually,
resident.
Marshfield's is closer to me than Scituate.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah,
But you
Hanover,
know,
I just mind going
That's
to
right.
Scituate, you're
That's
So at
right.
any rate, I
Good
think
guy.
it's, Amy and I have to look at a couple of the maps, but I think we're pretty confident that they're within
Oh, they are. I think they are.
where
Yeah.
they're supposed to
I
be.
think they are.
Yeah, it's just,
Well, there's a
like you said,
detention
the
basin.
trails have grown closer.
I mean,
Right.
That's why people think they're moving, but they're not moving. They're up in the sky, but they're not moving outward with their compost.
What you
But
guys,
then, if you're looking in from those trails you speak of,
Yeah.
and you see that wetland veg next to the windmill,
Oh,
Right.
yeah,
that's actually in a detention basin that was built,
built.
apparently was built by the windmill folks,
Yeah, when
but
they
they're
were
not
doing that.
maintaining it.
No,
But,
well, they're using the water.
and it doesn't drain, so it's a
No.
kind of a wet basin, I
Yeah.
guess you would say. I'm not sure how it
It-
functions at all. It's
it-
not very big either, it's like
No,
a
but
hole in the ground.
he's not doing anything out there. I think that's the big thing. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is people were complaining that
Right.
he's gone crazy out there and
Yeah.
he's doing this and he's doing that, and it's like,
He might have other issues, but not with us.
well, yeah,
No.
no.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
like a fire department's involved in pile height and compliance
Yeah, I
with
mean,
solid
that's
waste
not us.
issues.
Yeah, and
Or the
his
selectmen
indication was
making
those piles will be
addressing
way
other
down in
complaints,
August.
You know, like about the roadway getting
Right.
blocked up and stuff like that, but that's not us.
Right.
No, he's, okay.
All right. And then the best one was our site visit out to the Glades.
Like,
Oh, yeah. That's a nice
Oh,
field
Isn't
trip.
that nice?
So fun.
That was nice.
Yeah, beautiful out there. And they're just trying to figure out how to be in compliance and protect their property like
Yeah.
everybody else in Scituate.
yeah.
So,
It'll be a notice of intent.
yeah.
Coming in. for
Yeah.
that.
That
Probably
was a
in
good
July.
recommendation, though, that they look into those grants.
Yeah.
So,
All good, all good.
all right, anybody else? Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Take a second. All in favor?
Bye.
You want to stay longer?